My name is Viola, and I've been a user interface developer with TPF software for almost 10 years. And I've worked on the Windows user interface for zTPFGI. In this webinar, I'll be demoing the dump viewer in zTPFGI, and after that we can have some time for questions. So please save your questions to the end. I'm not a TPF expert, but if you have any technical questions that I'm unable to answer, I will be able to refer your questions to somebody who is able to answer them. If you want to ask a question, please click the hand raise symbol in the GoToWebinar app. I can then unmute you and you can ask your question. Alternatively, you can type your question into the chat window of the GoToWebinar app. In this case, I can read out your question and answer it. Now, without any further ado, let's take a look at the dump viewer. First of all, let's take a look at how you would view dumps when you're not in the dump viewer. Now, as you can see from my screen, I have zTPFGI running. I'm connected to a system already. And on this right-hand side, you can see here I have a zTPF command terminal. Now, this is a terminal emulator that's integrated into zTPFGI. It's not a trace terminal. You can't actually trace your programs in it, but it does allow you to quickly enter commands and receive responses from the system. So as you can see on this, I've already turned on dump collection so that we can collect any dumps. And normally speaking, you can enter various commands and you can view your dumps. I have a drop-down menu. Here's some that I have entered earlier. So I'm just going to rerun some of these via the drop-down menu. So if I run a ZD dump display, you can see, as expected, it shows a list of various dumps that are in the system. These are all test dumps that I created myself on purpose. If you wanted, again, to take a closer look at a specific dump, here again is one I entered earlier, so I'm just going to use my drop-down menu to just select it, just to make life easier. So I'm just going to select dump number 14. That's this one here in the list. And you can see that I've got some basic information about the dump and the registers and that sort of thing. And normally speaking, you can enter different commands and you can look at different aspects of the dump. Now, what I'd like to show you in this demo is really just how much easier it is to do in zTPFGI. Because in zTPFGI, we actually have a graphical user interface which allows you to view your dumps much more easily. Now, let me just open the ALC terminal first, and let me run a command that I know is going to create a dump. It's called zdump, and it is designed specifically to create a dump. So I'm just going to enter that. And as predicted, I have a dump. And I just want to take a brief moment just to remind you of how the ECB window looks. We have the graphical view with the registers, data levels. If we had DECBs, they would show slightly lower than the data levels. And then you have the various tabs which show the various other aspects that you're already familiar with. And just as another reminder, you can double-click on various parts of this and to open up core blocks. And you can even go to the System tab and you can choose overlay panels. Now, obviously, which overlay panel you choose really depends on the core block. I'm just choosing any one just to show you and just as a reminder. Now let's just run no trace and get out of that ECB. You'll see in a little while why I wanted to quickly remind you of that. And I'm just going to exit the ALC terminal. Let's take a look at the actual dump terminal. Now, I'm in the System tab, and this button here which says ALC1, that shows that the ALC1 is my current terminal. But if I drop down this drop-down menu of active resources, I can go down and just here you can see that I have a button which is called DMP1, and this is actually the dump viewer. So I'm just going to open that up, and here you can see that the dump viewer, I have a list of dumps. I can open this up to show various other columns as well. Let's bring that back in again. And I have a list of dumps, and then next to that I have the details for that dump along with the registers. And you can compare it with what you can see here in the zTPF command terminal, and you can see that it's basically a similar information but just easier to read. If I wanted to peruse through my list, I can just click on different ones, and you can see the information updates so that the information on the right reflects whichever dump has been selected on the left. Now, the next thing that I can do, if I wanted to take a closer look at a dump, I can actually select a dump and I can double click it. And this actually opens the dump and this is why I wanted to remind you of what the ECB trace window looks like, because you will see the similarities immediately. And the way that we designed this was for you to be able to view your dumps in the same sort of environment that you're already familiar with, because you already use that environment for tracing your ECBs. So that reduces your learning curve. I guess the main difference is that the main differences are, one, you can notice the difference in the icon. We've got a sort of blue threads there, and that's just to differentiate so that you can easily see that you're in the dump viewer and that you're not actually in a live ECB. The other difference is that obviously because you're just viewing a dump, this is read-only. You can't edit anything as you would in the ECB window itself. But although you can't edit, you can obviously peruse. So just like in the ECB window, I can click on these various tabs to see different areas of my dump. I can also double click on the different areas that I would have normally been able to double click on in the ECB window as well. So let me just open this data level 3 core block. So there I have my core block, and I can even go into the system tab and I can apply my panel if I wanted to. If I wanted to look at more than one dump at a time, I can return to my list of dumps and I can just double click another one. Now you can open a maximum of 5 dumps at a time. If you're wanting to open more than 5, you would have to actually close 1 or 2 and then open other ones instead. So now here I am, I've got 2 different dumps open, so I can double click this data level here, and you can see that I'm able to view a data level there. I'm just going to move that over there because the other aspect that I wanted to show you is that when I move from one dump to another, so currently I'm looking at this dump number 49, and this is the floating window that I have at the moment associated with it. And you can have more than one floating window, obviously, associated with it. I can open as many as I want. But now, if I decide, okay, I want to go back and look at dump 43, what you'll notice is that any floating windows that were associated with dump 49 are removed from the view, and the ones associated with 43 are brought into view. And same again, I can switch back again. And if I go to the list, all the floating windows associated with all my dumps disappear. And the reason for that is simple. It keeps your workspace tidy. It doesn't overcrowd it. If you imagine that you had several windows open for a particular dump and then several windows open for another one, it could get a little bit confusing if you have a lot of floating windows all over the place. So we keep your workspace tidy, and we just make it easier and less confusing for you by hiding any floating windows that aren't actually associated with the current dump that you're actually looking at that moment. So now let's, I guess we can just take a look at how to get out of dumps. So if you wanted to exit one or more dumps, you can right-click on the actual tabs themselves, and you can either say exit dump, or you can say exit all dumps. You can do the same thing via the trace tab. You can see that obviously you can't create an ECB or run or step. So all these buttons are obviously unavailable because of it being a dump. But you can exit the dump, or you can exit all the dumps that are open. The same buttons are available down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say exit all dumps. And you can see that the dumps that I had opened plus the floating windows that were associated with them all close. And you're left with just the list with the details once again. So if I close this, this closes the dump viewer. Now, one thing I would like you to be aware of is, let's just go to the System tab. Now, I showed you towards the beginning of this webinar that the active resource was the ALC1 terminal. Now, just because you've closed the dump viewer window, the dump viewer is still your active resource. You can tell that because it says DMP1, and you can see the little blue icon in there. So if you wanted to fully exit the dump viewer and maybe trace a program or something, you would actually need to drop down your active resource list and select, for example, an ALC terminal. And that, you can see now the icon has changed. It says ALC1, and the it's a little yellow thread instead. And that shows you that you're back in your ALC terminal again. So that's really all I needed to show you at the moment about the dump viewer. And I really wanted to show you how zTPFGI makes it really easy to view and debug your dumps. And it's made easier because it's a low learning curve. It's already questions. I can see that there is actually already a question. So let me just have a look at what that question is. Okay, I'll read it out. It says, I already know that when zTPFGI is connected to a TPF system, an ECB is created that exists for the duration of the connection. Are there additional resources or ECBs in use on the TPF system when a dump is opened?
Okay, so the first statement is true. Like when a user connects GI to a particular TPS system, there will be an existing ECB which will be active until the user is connected to the TPS system. But the second part of the question is, if I understand correctly, when you open the dump resource, are there any additional ECBs created or active? So no, that is that's not true. So we are not going to use any additional resources. The same session ECB which has been active will actually access the dump file and will be able to display all the dumps listed, and will allow users to browse the dump details. I hope I answered the question. I would like to add a few more points. One is for this dump resource to work in any TPS system, the customer needs to turn on the dump logging. The dump logging should be active, and the POSIX file should be defined, and this dump resource will actually access those files to display the dump. information.
Great, thanks, Nagraj. Does that answer the question? I can see another number of other hands raised, I think, and I think I can unmute people to ask their question. Okay, another question is there a way to view TPFDF data for the dump?
Okay, well, no, the answer is no right now, because
okay,
the TPFDF data is there in the dump file, but the graphical interface to view is the wish list that we have received from other customer sources also, that we will be including that as part of the next update.
Okay, thanks, Nagraj. So the next question, how do I get the System tab on my options? The System tab in the ribbon menu actually appears automatically when you're connected to a system. If you're not connected to a system, it's not shown because there's no context for it. So, but
yeah, why don't you show it? You disconnect and then connect and show that the system tab is not there, and probably connect and then.
Okay, I'll just disconnect now. Okay, I'm just disconnecting and see the System tab has gone. And if I reconnect, and it's come back again. There you go. So yeah, so it's an automatic thing. If you're connected to a system, it shows. Okay, the next question is, the question is, it seems like this is primarily, if not only, for dumps which occur while you are tracing. Is there a way to view a dump from the dump logs from LTCUST yesterday, for example?
Okay, like I think the dump resource is actually showing all the dumps which are available in the system. Now, these are online dumps which are currently available in the system. Like if you would like to know what are the dumps or the online dumps that you would like to browse in LTCUST, you have to connect to LTCUST and click the dump resource, and that will show you all the currently available online dumps on the system. And you should be able to click one of the dump which you are interested in and double click and then look at the dump information.
Okay, the next question is, can we step past the dump and continue to trace?
Okay, this is only like you're only browsing it's more like browsing an offline dump, but it is just available on the TPF system at that time. So you're browsing the dumps, it's not like you're in between the transaction and then you cannot continue. But suppose I am issuing a transaction in the ALC terminal, and if that terminal hits a dump while you're in trace, yes, you can bypass and do the circuit return or the dump and continue. There are certain options that you can show, Viola. If you click on the big zTPFGI options.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, if you look at here, step with dump. Okay, there's an option called step with dump. Suppose you open a ALC terminal and you issue a transaction and you're tracing. And if there is a dump which occurs, the ECB will pop up and it will show you, okay, this is the instruction and these are the registers where the dump occurred. But if you would like to continue, if you have this option set, it will allow you to continue with even though there is a dump, and continue to go to the next step. But it's up to the programmers to make sure that the dump has occurred for some reason, so you know what you're doing. So make sure the registers are not right. You can probably change it and then continue doing the step. So that's only applicable while you're tracing, not on the dump files.
Great, thanks. Okay, next question, can you look at dumps from other terminals?
Can you look at dumps from other terminals? I'm not very clear on the question. When you say other terminals, the dumps in the same system, but through other terminals, can you ask to expand the question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm looking at the my zTPFGI and I click on the MP1 and I don't see any dump in the list. So I'm thinking that this tool only works for dumps that have occurred on my terminal.
Okay, now I understand the question. So no, that's not true. Actually, when you click on the dump resource, irrespective of whatever the terminal the dump caused, we are actually browsing the system file. So we are connecting to the system and looking at all the dumps available in the system. It's not attached to any particular terminal or only to your terminal. So if you don't see the list, probably that system might not have the dumps right now. It might have got cleared. So if there are dumps in the system available, definitely it should show the list.
Well, when I do a ZZOMD, I see dumps.
Okay. So probably can I ask from which customer is this query from?
From Sabre. I do a ZZOMD all, and I see a lot of dumps. But when I try to look at the dump viewer, I don't see anything there.
Okay. Is this the PSS or the PNR box?
STS. I'm in
This is
STSA.
right? Okay. So
yeah.
we'll take a look. I think it should work. We do have access to the system. Probably we'll take a look at that. It should show all the dumps.
Okay, thank you.
So okay, thank you. So I think we'll check and then respond to it. But to answer your question, we are not only showing the dumps occurred in your terminal. Generally, it will access the system file and show all the systems available. All the dumps available.
So even dumps. I thought you had to set up the dump logging so you can use this tool, or it's automatically set up in our system.
I know in Sabre the dump logging is on, so I'm assuming that should not be an issue. But we will check if that is still on or what's the issue, right?
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, the next question, would zTPFGI show you all the CTL or OPR dumps or just some?
We explained earlier, it is going to display all the available online dumps in the system. So whatever the list is available in the system, we are going to display all of them. But as you know, in TPF, the online dump file gets overwritten every time. So if the online dump file is full, and if there is a new dump which occurs, it's going to overwrite one of those dumps. So the dump list keeps refreshing based on the available space or whatever is defined in that system. So every time you click on the dump resource, what we show is the current list available in the system. That can change after a couple of hours because the data might get overwritten or changed.
Thanks. Okay, next question. Can the dump viewer be used to view any dump on the system or only dumps created from my GI session? I think that's been answered already, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's the answer is again, I can repeat. You can view all the dumps created, not only the dumps created through GI session, any dumps available.
Okay, thanks. So the next question is, how do you get to the zTPF command terminal? Let me just close my zTPF command terminal so that I can show you. And here I am on the System tab, which, as we've said, only shows when you're connected to a system. And here we've got non-trace terminals. So we have trace resources and then non-trace terminals. And zTPF command is a non-trace terminal, and you just click there to open it. So the next ZASA dump one debug, what creates the dump one active resource?
The ZASER command is an IBM command, and I'm not sure all the users can enter those. It is generally a restricted command in most of the customer places. So the system people or the only few people who have access can actually turn it on.
Yeah, okay. And the second part of the question is there some way to use this tool with real-time production dumps?
No, right now this is attached to only the test systems. So we do have a request from one of the customers that can you make the same thing available for the production system? That is still under discussion, but that's not available right now.
Okay, how do you get to the zTPFGI options screen? You can go to the big Z in the top left-hand corner, and then you can click on that, and then you come down, and right at the bottom here there's a button which says zTPFGI options, and you just click on that. And then the TPF debugger options are, you can peruse the categories, and it's on the TPF debugger options page. Okay, there's a question which says, how do you set up dump logging? And really that's from the IBM command that we'd just discussed, which Nagraj has explained it's only really available to administrators, I think. There's another question, can you please explain dump logging again? What does it do?
Okay, the dump logging is, so in zTPF what they have done is, every time, I think this used to be there in 4.1 also, but what happens is every time there is a dump occurs in the TPF system, there is certain information of that dump. The dump is also returned to the tape, and the dump, a summary of the dump information is also returned to the dump file. There is a dump file that they create, it's a POSIX file system. So they log the summary of the dump informations one by one in this file system. So this file system is accessible. So what we do is through our dump resource, when you connect to a particular TPS system, we access this, and when you click this dump resource, we access this file and then pull all the list of dumps, online dumps available on the TPS system to browse. Right. So using this, you can using this you can actually browse all the dumps. You can double click on any of the dump which is interested and look at the registers, data levels, and DECBs and the core areas. And if you think you need more information of that dump, then you might probably want to request for a post processing of that dump. I hope I answered that question.
Thanks, Nagraj. Okay, the next question, is dump logging automatically on for Travelport?
Okay, in Travelport, I know that it's on in some of the big test systems. If you are using a private test system or application vPath or a boat labs kind of thing, then we need to check if those things are on. When you click on the dump resource and if you see an empty display, but when you use the IBM command and go to that system, and then if you are able to see there are dumps already in the system, but this dump resource is not showing, then probably we need to understand why it's not working. The reason might be the dump logging is on, but we are not able to pull the information. But or if things are not working, then probably the dump logging is not even on in the system. So there is a command that you can look at. I'm just trying to remember what is that command to verify if there is a dump logging is on or not. Give me a few minutes, but while we answer the other questions, probably I'll look at that command.
Okay, another one is, could you just quickly repeat visually the process you go through to connect to a listing of the dumps and bring one up for viewing? Yeah, sure, I can do that. So I'm here in the System tab, and under Trace Resources, I have the active trace resources, and I can just choose, I can go down the list. The top half of this is a button, the bottom half is a drop-down list. So I'll just open the drop-down list, and I can select DMP1 from there, and that brings up the list. And then if I wanted to open a particular dump for a closer inspection, I double click on that item in the list and that opens it. The next question, how do we sign into the zTPF command? Okay, sure.
See, the zTPF command terminal is only provided to as an alternative terminal to issue IBM commands. You can actually do a ZDECD or ZDSys or any kind of IBM commands. So we don't allow application entries to be issued there. So we don't allow sign-in. So you cannot do a sign-in command, sign-in on that. And you cannot do a trace, and you cannot do a trace. It's just an alternate command to issue the IBM commands. But in some customer places, we know that the command terminal is auto signed on, and it's not common for all of the customers.
Okay, so I'm from Sabre, and I'm trying to do a Z command to display the list of dumps. Maybe and it's asking me to sign in. It gives me an error.
Yeah. I think. Can you try to give the command in caps lock?
Okay, that was it. It has to be in caps. I didn't realize that.
Okay.
Okay.
Viola, can you unmute Bob Avey if he wants to ask a question?
Yes, I can do that. We can, yes.
Hi, Nagaraj. It's Bob from Travelport. Just wanted to try and clarify some of the confusion that I've heard with some of the questions. And I think you verified one of my questions, Nagaraj, in the fact that the zTPFGI dump viewer is using the dumps that are written to the file system that IBM writes at the same time that they're writing dumps to the tape system. One point of clarification that I wanted to make is that there are a list of rules within the IBM code that governs which dumps do get written to the file system. So not all dumps necessarily do get written to the file system, and so subsequently are not available. So there are the possibility of some dumps that if you wish to view, you would still have to post-process because they would not be available through this mechanism via zTPFGI or the toolkit dump viewer. Another clarification that might the person from Sabre that was referring to information on his test system. I know we run into problems at Travelport when our large test customer system is captured from the production system, that the dump list is not necessarily cleared. And so we see a list of all the dumps from the production system in the list, but those dumps are not actually available within our test system file system, so we can't actually view those. So there are some situations that occur with the clearing of that file system and stuff based off of what your internal teams are doing when test systems and such are created. One clarification I wanted to ask Nagaraj is, and now my mind just went blank. Shoot, now I just completely lost that question. I apologize.
Okay, Bob, I think you can probably we can wait for you. And in the meantime, thanks for your comments. I think when you say that only few, it depends on the IBM rules. I'm assuming those things are only controlled by the system people. So in terms of the user, if he wants to know what is being allowed and what's not being allowed, Is there a way that they can, they know that maybe only control and OPR dumps are visible, catastrophic is not, or how does that rules really, how do we know what rules?
The rules that I haven't actually seen them. They are contained within systems code, and it does. It's quite a long list of rules that go into. It's like 2 or 3 pages worth of code that go into deciding if the dump actually gets written to the file system.
Yes, but mainly
whether or not, I was going to say, whether or not particular companies have made changes to those rules as the CP was implemented into their particular systems, they would have to talk with their systems area to find that out.
Yes, and mainly I think pretty much the very common ones, the application dumps should be open. I think they make sure that those are all logged, I believe. And for the second comment, that's a great information. I think I did not realize that. Thanks for bringing it up. But is it not the operational part of it? Like once you do the production recreate or copy the data from production system to test systems, you also clear the dumps? Is it not part of the procedure, or they don't clear it?
We have been in lengthy discussions regarding that, and from what I understand, it was a lengthy procedure to accomplish, so it has been decided, at least at Travelport, that that's not occurring. And so I don't necessarily consider it a dead issue, but that's where we're at.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for your comments. It's been very useful. Those are very, really useful inputs. Thank you. And if, do you know the question that you wanted to ask?
Regarding your statement and the question regarding the availability of the dump viewer within a production environment, that there's nothing to keep that from being available should the particular company decide to turn on the GI interface within production.
No, actually, no. Actually, we will not recommend that to the customer, because if you turn on GI, it also turn on all the other capabilities, right? So what we are looking is, we want to separate this viewing the dumps part alone, and do not have the tracing capabilities in the production. So we don't want to do that. So certain limitations has to be taken care before we allow customers or recommend customers that this can be turned on. So that is where we want to be careful and what we recommend. And we are looking to make some changes. Only when you are dealing with production, you have to be extra careful, right? That's the part of the reason.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're right. If you can go and turn it on, it's going to still work it, but we don't recommend that to any customer to do it.
Just because of the fact that it does activate the ability to actually set up a trace, potentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, I still have a hand raised from Lance Gaylor. Shall I'll just unmute Lance and you can ask the question directly. Lance, if you'd like to go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay. We have 2 questions on the zTPF command terminal. Down at the command line, can you use the move down, move up command to browse among the scissors, or the zpage command? Zpage or MDMU?
Okay. I think you can use it, but generally these zTPF command terminal, the number of lines to be displayed, we have defined it as more than 200 lines, and it also depends on each customer. Okay, that was part of the prerequisite we recommend to the customers. When you define these Z terminals, the terminals for the command terminal, we ask them to define the display lines to be more than 200. So you don't have to scroll or do zpage move down. In most of the customer places, when you issue a command which has so many lines of display. It actually just shows everything, and you can use the scrolling bar in that window to look at all the data. Right? But the Z page should still work.
Okay, so the maximum that you show is 200?
That's what we have displayed so far. We have not had a request to either increase or decrease, but it's been working well. But if there is a case that we need to change it, it's not controlled by GI. It's controlled by the UAT, the line item properties. So the customer systems group can always go and change it.
Okay. So if your dump is the 201st, you might not see it.
Sorry, I missed the last part of the question.
If there's already 200 dumps on that list, and you create a dump, which is the 201st.
Okay, this is not, I think we were talking about the command terminal, not the dump terminal.
Yeah, zTPF command terminal, yes.
Yeah, the command terminal is used to issue any kind of Z commands. So if you have Z commands, which is like, for example, Zolder display, and if the display is going more than 200 lines, you should be able to do Z page. But this is nothing to do with the dump, the number of dumps. We are not referring, we are talking two different things. One is the command terminal and its limitation on the display, and the number of dumps to be displayed is entirely different.
Okay, so you're talking about the DMP1, the difference between the DMP1 option and then the zTPF command, two different things. So what is the limitation on the DMP1?
So the DMP1 is like whatever the systems, the TPS system has they have defined it. It actually pulls all the available number of dumps listed in the TPS.
Okay, so there's no limit there.
No, we try to pull everything. There's no limit, but generally the TPS systems group limit the file space or the whatever if it is a smaller test system, they define it as a smaller file. So the number of dumps that can hold will be less. But when we go and pull the information, we try to pull everything, whatever is available.
That's good. Okay, well, my last question is that Viola showed us the very first entry on the zTPF command terminal, and we can't see it right now, but which activates the dumps to be able to display, so it's on. Was it ZASER dump on DUPL debug?
Okay, this is one. This is the command to turn on the dump on, which we don't recommend the users to do it. Generally, this is only for the demo purpose. But these commands, ZASER commands, are generally used by the system groups, and it is a restricted command, right? And there was also a question asking, how do I know if this particular dump logging is on or not? So there is a command called ZDSER, Zebra, Denmark, S for Sam, Echo, Roger, ZDSER. That will actually display whether the dump, the logging the dump is on or not.
Okay, so we're not supposed to use the ZASER command, but we can use the ZDSER command to see if it's on or off?
Yes, ZASER command, even if you try to use it, you might get that restricted, but I will leave that to the respective customer, the system or the systems group to handle it, because those are restricted differently in different customer places.
So what do you suggest when we do ZDSER and it says that the dump reading option is not on?
If it's not on, probably you should contact your systems group or the system group to see why it's not on, or can you turn it on so that we can start looking at the dumps, online dumps.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I have one more hand still raised, and this is Nadine Dixon Dennis. I'll just unmute you so that you two can just ask outright. Hi, Nadine.
Hi, sorry about that. I was just wondering, he mentioned that the online dumps, if the tape is overwritten, you may lose it. I was wondering if there was anywhere it's archived that we could actually get to it after, or that will be totally lost.
Okay, I have to verify, but I believe that I don't know if there is any other way that it's archived. If in the sense, if you don't see it in the online dump list, definitely it's there on the tape. You can always go and process the dump and then still look at it.
Okay.
But most of the times, if it's not there in the online dump list, it should be there in the tape. But I don't see this list getting refreshed or overwritten so early. So depends on the customer and the installation. Generally, it takes a couple of days to even overwrite. So, but if you have a very large system happening so many dumps, you never know. It can even get overwritten every couple of hours.
Right, because one of the things I've come across is where you may not get a chance to look at it the day it happens, or maybe a day or two after. When you do try to look at it, it may say the tape is overwritten or something. So that's why.
No, it's not. I think we are talking it's not the tape. See, the online dumps we are referring to a file system in the TPF. So the tape, but the dump which occurred 2 days before is definitely written to the tape also. The tape is not overwritten. You can always go back, and then if you know if you're referring a console log and you know the tape number, definitely based on the customer installation again, if the tape is not been remounted or it's not been overwritten, if it's still available, you can always post-process it.
Okay.
I don't actually have any more raised hands, but I'm not sure whether I've managed to mention everybody's questions. So if I have skipped anyone, I guess now's your chance to raise your hand just to remind me or to have yourself heard. I'll just give a minute.
Yeah,
a moment or two.
And while just a comment, along with the questions what we are getting, if they can also give feedback on what else we can improve in this functionality, we can also take those so that will be part of our wish list going forward.
Yes, that's right. Of course, yes. Any sort of ideas on how we can improve this is always welcome. Yeah. Okay. Well, if there's no more actual questions at the moment, I think we can probably draw this to a close. Thanks, Nagraj, for being available to answer the questions as well. We also have many more webinars planned. We have them on the first Wednesday of every month usually. So please come back and attend. So much everybody for attending and for asking the questions and participating. And have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.